Good morning, everybody. Betting for Breakfast live from the Sharp app. Huge week for us. The app has launched on Apple, Google Play, everywhere. It really is the best place to watch us. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, any other platforms, there's a link to download the app in the description. Guys, the app is really incredible. There are live odds for comparisons from all your favorite books. Bet trackers so you can track your progress during the season. It is going to be an incredible year with football season approaching. And the best part about it is the first 1,000 people to download are going to get a free month of our VIP membership. You're going to get access to all the models, tools, the Sharp Academy classes, instructional videos on building models, making your own lines, arbitrage, you name it. There's something in there for every level experience sports better. So make sure you download the app today, join the team, and let's have a hell of a year. I'm Mark Drumheller. I'm here with Dave Glecter. Dave, I'm super excited this week. The app is live. Lots of great things going on with Sharp. We are 1 week away from week 0, and I already got some plays in the account. Not going to talk about them this week. We'll get into that next week. This week, we're going to continue our previews, ACC, and some of the other Group of 5 stuff. How excited are you for the season, my man?
I can't wait. Yo, right there. Sharp app. Just hit
You
that.
got it.
Hit that subscribe to YouTube right up top. You'll get right to all the great shows here happen on the Sharp app. I downloaded it last night. Been just running through it. Yo, it's legit. It is
It's sharp.
Yeah, we've downloaded some other stuff, been on some other apps. This is top notch right here. Spent a lot of time. Looks great. But yeah, you're right. I'm ready to talk about the ACC. I love some ACC football. The ACC is coming back this year. I'm telling you, going to be second or third best conference in the nation. And then the Group of 5. We love digging into these teams that, come out of nowhere. And by the end of the season, December-ish, you're falling in love with 1, 2, 3 of these teams, hoping they get to a BCS game and hoping they, they're able to play against one of the big guys, right? The Power Fives. And show up and have a really big upset. Cincy almost did it last year against Georgia, so I'm really excited to talk about those teams as well. Got a couple I'm keeping my eye on.
Yeah, 100%, man. And the Group of 5 stuff is fun because those teams, when they come up and shock everyone, and there's plenty of value in those teams if you can get ahead of the market with them. Last year, Coastal Carolina was really like the theme of our show the entire season last year because we just continued to pound Coastal Carolina. They continued to come through and cover all the way up until the end. But it was an incredible season. Made me a Coastal Carolina fan for life. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Grayson McCall comes back, lined up for a tremendous season. Win totals up there. Expectations are a lot higher for Coastal Carolina. Big difference between sneaking up on teams and then being the hunted with the target on your back. We'll see how they can fare this year. But we have to find those other gems. We have to find the other teams in there in that Group of 5 that can make us some money this year. But let's start with the ACC making news, right? There's lots of, rumors swirling now with these alliances, conferences combining, the ACC, Pac-12, and Big Ten thinking about combining to kind of take on the SEC, and which I think is really exciting, Dave. And that's kind of what I want to see. I want to see the best teams play each other. So I know that a lot of people are into the tradition and the pageantry and, how college football has been for the past several years. But right now, TV talks, man. And, Solid Verbal is an incredible college football podcast. And they had a line that I thought was incredible that really sums it up. And they really said college football nails a TV show. That's what it is. It's a TV show. It's not, academic sporting event. It is really there for TV, and TV's driving it. And that's why you're seeing these alliances combine.
Yeah. And, we kind of talked about Oklahoma, Texas right before Oklahoma, Texas happened. And when you see that was the first domino to fall, we know what happens when one falls. The rest start falling. And I just think it's inevitable that you're going to see some of these conferences align, merge, and form power. It's not going to be a conference anymore. It's just going to be this big, conglomerate teams. Yeah. And I get it. It's all based on money, network, TV, attendance, sales. I don't love an ACC Pac-12 merger. I think it makes zero, from a traditionalist point, I'm going to watch games during the day. I can't even stay up for the Pac-12 games sometimes, and that's going to matter and affect what happens out east. It's just, I think it's going to be murky, but hey, it is what it is. We're handed what we're handed, and we're going to go forward. As long as they're playing football games and they're getting some traditional matchups, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm in it. I want to see the best play the best. We get a little
Yeah,
taste of what we can see in the future this year. Week 2 on the schedule: Ohio State Buckeyes, Oregon Ducks,
yeah,
which is going to be a good one. I think Ohio State pretty heavily favored in that one for good reason. But it gives those teams in these other conferences. We know like the Pac-12 has a label, right? Teams think they're soft. Big Ten, you think grinders, power football. Mixing those two together, I think, would be a lot of fun, man. So I'm excited for the potential matchups in the future. And, I'm excited that it's not just going to be the SEC and everybody else, and that's
yeah.
another part of it too. You know what I mean? It's just not everybody just going to one conference. So big things ahead with that. But let's talk about the ACC. Clemson Tigers really are the lead dog in there, right? Obviously set to make the playoffs, to be right up there. Play Georgia, tough game to start the year with Clemson. Clemson, minus 715, like I said, to, win the conference. Obviously, no value there, no bet there with that. I'm not betting into 715 with Clemson. But, they are going to probably run away with the ACC. But Dave, when you look at the ACC in general, what are some of the key teams that you think could surprise, might be overvalued or undervalued in the market?
Yeah, ACC is getting better, but you obviously have that team up the top that's gonna win the conference. I mean, I think they're minus
Mhm.
800 to win the ACC, and you'd be a fool to go against them. Yeah, it's just the bottom line. They're reloaded, they're retooled. Yes, they lost a ton to the NFL, but Clemson's at the top, and we talked about them a little bit last week with the SEC preview and how that game against Georgia is a key tipping point for whether you're going to go bet win totals with them. But outside of it all, let's look below it. And I agree with you. There's just looking on the Atlantic side, that's the heavy side. I feel like as far as you got Clemson and you got a couple other sneaky teams that are coming in and trying to play top dog to Clemson or be right there
Mhm.
second place. You got a BC team coming in with Hafley as the second-year coach, Phil Jerkovich. We can get into them. NC State's looking solid. You don't know where you're going to get with Florida State, but it really revolves around quarterback Mackenzie Milton, who could be the feel-good story of the whole college football season. And then on the flip side, over in the Coastal, who knows? I know you got UNC. I know you got Sam Howell. The pretty picture right there. We've seen quarterbacks from North Carolina, what they do sometimes. I'm not sold fully on Sam Howell as the next, best thing, Trevor Lawrence of the ACC, but we can talk about them. Miami, obviously, got to talk about Derek King. Look, there's some other teams right there, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Pitt, all in the wings. That side really has some interesting teams. So in all, we just said 6-7 teams. I see 7-8 making the bowls.
Yeah, it's pretty competitive once you get past Clemson, right? You
Yeah.
talked about a Clemson minus 700, minus 800 odds to win the conference, and just to kind of show the gap, right? The next favorite teams are UNC and Miami. We'll talk about them. You talked about Sam Howell plus 1,000, right? So there's just a huge gap as far as the conference is concerned. But after that, it does get pretty competitive. We have a couple people checking in. Our guy Arroyo, listen, always a mainstay with the show. We appreciate you guys. And Adam Cease, what's up, Adam? Getting ready for a big football season this year. You guys, make sure you download the Sharp app right now. The link is in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description there. If you're watching on Facebook, in the description there. If you need to go to my Twitter page, you can see it pinned and download the Sharp app, guys. We're going to have a hell of a year. There's going to be a ton of content in there. So make sure you're downloading the app and supporting the fan. So we appreciate you guys every week. Can't wait for an exciting season. Back to the ACC. Dave talked about a big gap between Clemson and kind of everybody else. When you look at Clemson and they're going to start off with Georgia, which is going to be a huge game. There are some injury concerns with Georgia's secondary, which I think is one area that they could probably afford some injuries, to be honest with you. But how do you see them in general with Clemson? We talk about Clemson losing Lawrence, not necessarily in that first game, a little bit of time to handicap that one, but just losing Lawrence, right? They move on to DJ. We know that, DJ's highly talented at a St. John's Bosco. We know that, different type of quarterback, right? Big arm, more physical quarterback, but can definitely make plays. We got a glimpse of that. But I really think that it's a team that's going to have to rely on their defense. That defensive line, if they meet expectations, I think could be one of the tops in the country. And I really think Clemson, as far as the season after Georgia schedule, softens up a little bit, but I definitely think they're going to be right in the mix for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about the defense. James Skalski passing on the NFL, I thought was a huge move for them. He's that linebacker, I think he wears the crop top, he just looks like he's just out there. He could play anywhere, rain, mud, sleet, snow. He's just, he's awesome. Sideline, just a constant motor. So you said the defensive line up front, great, obviously, but the linebacking core might be the strength of this team. Really good defensive backfield. They're going to be tough to score on all year, and it'll show week one. And Georgia's not that super explosive team. They're good. They're very good. They can pound you up front. So it's really gonna be interesting to see how that defense kind of maybe carries the team a little bit as this offense settles itself. We know DJ is gonna be huge. We saw him at Notre Dame last year. I guess the biggest concern for them is there is no depth behind DJ. They lost their second quarterback to an Achilles injury. I'm not even going to try and say his name. I'll just call him Taysom. He lost an Achilles injury in the spring. So there's some question marks behind them at quarterback. And obviously in this COVID era, that could really come into play, right? I mean, Trevor had to sit a game. So, you always got to keep an eye on those things. So that's probably their biggest weakness. But outside of that, I mean, one loss, slip up in the ACC is probably the max you would see with this team.
Yeah, I agree with you. Justin Ross, the wide receiver, is primed to have a big year. But you did hit the nail on the head. A lot of people are talking about just the lack of experience behind DJ. Bubba Chandler, Hunter Helms, all those guys, not a lot of snaps in their career, not a lot of experience. So if they do get into a point of where they do lose DJ, it could be a problem for them. Something to keep an eye on from a betting perspective, right? So if we're looking at betting Clemson this year, we know there's not a lot of depth behind DJ. What does that tell you, right? Okay, Clemson gets out to these big leads. It may be beneficial for Dabo, instead of trying to win 90-0 like he likes to. It may be beneficial to get some of these guys some snaps, get some of these guys some playing time, which would kind of make you kind of lean towards those first half plays as opposed to full game plays if you're laying these big numbers with Clemson, because it might be a point for Dabo to kind of get these guys some reps during the year in case he needs them down the line towards the end of the season, because a lot of inexperience with Clemson. So what are some other teams that you are targeting in the ACC, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start off with Boston College. And let me just, preface all this by saying the ACC has really got strength at the quarterback position. So as we go through a lot of these teams, we're going to see, a common theme here where we have returning stars at the quarterback position. I want to say like 14 out of the 15 teams in the ACC do have some returning stars at the quarterback position. The questions we'll get into. But Boston College, I'm excited for them. They finally have a quarterback, Phil Jerkovich. He's a transfer from Notre Dame, came over last season and really started to blossom in Jeff Hafley's new offensive system. They were stale under head coach Steve Adazio. They were run the ball, pass on third, punt on fourth. It was a common theme in Boston College that, they needed some new life, and they had it last year. I think there was a number out there just, roundabout. They ran the ball like 700 sometimes in 2019 and 18. It was like 300 last year. I mean, he opened up the playbook. He just started slinging around. And Zay Flowers, the receiver over there, had a huge season and reaped the benefits of it. He had 56 catches for 892 yards in that shortened season. And I'm excited to see what they can do in their second season. And my big reason for keying on Boston College here is they have a very solid O-line. All 5 starters are back. I know that's kind of like, in this year, when we say everyone's back, it's a little funny because you got that
little different,
right? But I mean, this was a solid offensive line. So bringing them back, they brought in a transfer, Alex Sinfield, to help the backfield because they didn't run the ball efficiently. That's probably why they didn't run it a lot. And then the defense has, 9 returning starters. They weren't great, 28 points per game, not great against the run, but they were solid against the pass. What does this mean? Why do I like Boston College? No Notre Dame, no North Carolina, no Miami. And then if you look at the key games on this schedule, the coin flips, they get Missouri at home. I talked about how high I am on Missouri last week, but at least it's in BC. NC State's at home. That's a big one. So after that, at Colgate, UMass, Temple, win. Louisville, Syracuse, win. Va-Tech, listen, that's at home too. Revenge game. Va-Tech smoked them last year. Huge game. They'll circle that one 3 times. I think that's a win. At Georgia Tech, win. Florida State's there. Win. Wake, win. That's 9 right there. I'm really feeling good about BC this year. I think it's a 9-3 season. And you got a couple coin flips. You never know. So I'm pumped. BC is the one team I'm really focused on in Atlantic.
Yeah, I like it, Dave. I'll be honest with you. And, you talked about them kind of reinventing themselves, right? Heavy run team, switched up to the heavy passing attack, and they were the number 1 team in the country as far as differential from last year to this year as far as run pass rate. So they've had the most impactful change in philosophy in the country. So, and I think that, last year probably served as a little bit of a warm up, as far as, getting used to the new offensive system and things of that nature. They get back Kobe White, the wide receiver, from ACL. I think he's going to add some, level of explosiveness to that offense. But you named it, the schedule, man. You're getting UMass, you're getting Temple, you're getting all those teams, right? And you get some key spots at home. So, definitely think it could be a big year for the Boston College Eagles. I like the play. I'm not going to lie to you. There is a team that I am targeting in the ACC that is very similar.
Well, let me just give it is over 7, just for the bettors and why we're taking over 7.
Mm-hmm.
It's minus 140. It's juiced, but that's the play I'm having. So sorry, I know you're going right.
No, that's no problem. Hop in there and give the numbers before we move on. But the good thing about the flat 7 is, check with your books. But I know some books bet MGMs like this. There's push potential. You get the push if you land on the number. You don't lose. So they would have to win 6 in order for you to lose your bet. If they win 8, you cash it. So I think that's something to keep in mind when you're getting a flat 7 there, with Boston College. Al Griffin checking in from the Heat Ratio Sports. Go check out Al, our guy. Big things coming from Heat Ratio Sports and Al Griffin. Love to see it. Can't wait for the Sixers season for sure. But moving on, continuing with the ACC, Boston College, I think primed for a big year. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And a team that I am looking at, a team that I'm targeting, is North Carolina State. I think NC State is a sneaky, really competitive team. You can get the over on the win total at 6.5 plus 100 at BetMGM right now. This is a team, Dave. They were 8-4 last year. They lost to Miami by a field goal. They finished the season with 4 straight wins after that. They have 19 returning starters, top 40 in recruiting. They get their top 3 running backs back. They get their top 3 wide receivers back. The defensive front is going to be a problem for teams. NC State is loaded there, top 20 in havoc. The linebackers, 11th best in the FBS per Phil Steele. Peyton Wilson, 108 tackles last year, led the ACC. He anchors that defense. But the secondary is strong too, Dave. Top 15. I think overall, NC State could be a top 10 defense. That's how bullish I am on this Wolfpack defense. I think that this team is much more talented than the team last year that won 8-4. The schedule is much more tougher, and that's where this gets difficult. That's why you're seeing the low total at 6.5 with this Wolfpack team. They get Clemson at home, which is kind of like a wash, right? Because they're going to lose to Clemson. You almost would rather have that eat up a road game. But you get back-to-back travel against BC and Miami, which is a tough spot, right? We just talked about Boston College, how tough they are. We know Miami. But last year, the Wolfpack played them tough, lost to them by a field goal. So that's going to be the key spot there. Can they steal one of those games? They finish at home against North Carolina. I'm not as big on North Carolina as some other people. I think a lot of their success, we'll talk about them, is going to come down to their running game, them losing Javonte Williams. The running game kind of sets that offense up at North Carolina so they can take deep shots down the field. But I'll tell you what, back with NC State in that schedule, they have to travel to FSU. That's one of the road games they have. That game got a lot more appealing this week because there are rumors out of Florida State. I'm hearing a lot of things about Mackenzie Milton not being healthy, may not be able to play this year. It could be one of the best stories of the year if he's able to come back and be successful. But it's looking like it might be like a situation where he is just not ready to come back for them, and they really don't have a backup plan there. Like they don't, they really a quarterback. They don't have anybody dynamic that they can stick in there. So that may be a very conservative offense that we're seeing at FSU. I know there's been some movement in that Notre Dame game to Notre Dame's direction because of that news with the quarterback situation there. But I think that, all in all, NC State, 8-win team again. I think the defense gives them upset potential in a lot of these spots. When you have a strong defense, you can stay close in these games. You can stay competitive, and then you catch a couple breaks at the end, and you can steal a game. So I think they clear this over at 6.5 in style. I think, 7 wins not going to be a problem for this team. So I am on the Wolfpack on the over 6.5 plus 100.
Yeah, I like the Wolfpack too, and I'm glad you brought them up. They're one of those teams that I just think flies under the radar. You don't get a lot of respect out of NC State because you know what they don't do? They don't do splashy things. And what I mean by that is 8-4 last year, fantastic, right? But I think they finished in the top 25 once under Dave Doran's tenure in the past 12, 13 years. But what's interesting is they've had 6 winning seasons in the last 7. They had one aberration, I think it was 2018. There's no other ACC team that can say that outside of Clemson. They're a consistent team that does win games and gets the bowl games. And last year, 8-4 and 2 losses by 3 points. And then the bowl game, you lose to Kentucky by 2. So it's it really they are solid. And again, you look at the QB situation. Devin Leary's back. He broke his leg last year, missed the last 7 games. They were piecemealing what they had, and it was junk. One of those cats transferred out, I think, to Western Kentucky. They do have a stud redshirt freshman coming in that could push Leary, but I think it's Leary's job to win. And then outside of that, I mean, the offensive line. They got 2 NFL prospects there. Left tackle Akeem Eknamu, really, really strong player, but the center and Grant Gibson, he's like a quarterback out there. He's your Jason Kelsey. Really, really he's a strong pointer of the team. So you like their defense a lot, and I do, but I like what they can do on offense here if Leary can come back and show he's healthy. And broken leg, God forbid, but it's better than ACL. It's better than Achilles. It's better than a lot of things. I think he's a little quicker, and I have some confidence that he's going to help them move the ball as well.
Yeah, I think we can see a big year for NC State. I think they could sneak up on a lot of teams. And like I said, to see a team that won 8 games last year, right, did not lose a ton of production, right? And we can say that about a lot of teams, but to be lined at 6.5, I get that the schedule's difficult, but again, I think they can steal one of those road games in that back-to-back at BC or at Miami. Which one, we'll have to see how the season goes, but they might not even have to, if they can win that game at FSU. I think the defense keeps them in a lot of games this season. So they're a team that I'm definitely going to be bet on during the season, especially earlier, because I think the market's low on them and it's going to take them a little time to catch up.
Yeah, I think their early part of their schedule is, obviously gettable, and that's when the market. Yeah, I'm with you. The tough games, like you said, Clemson at home, you're going to lose. You're probably going to lose the Miami game. It's there. UNC, we'll see. And then, like you said, Florida State's right there for them to get. So.
Yeah, another sneaky team, Dave, I want to talk to you about real quick. I did a piece for Yahoo Sportsbook. You can get it over at Yahoo Sports. There's a link in my Twitter profile. It gives you all the work that I do for them. But I talked about Virginia. And I think Virginia is a very interesting team because a lot of people, they just overlooked them, okay. But, they had 2 very successful seasons before last year. Last year, they took a little step back. I think they went 5-5 last year. But they returned Brennan Armstrong a quarterback. And, I think if they can kind of open up the offense a little bit, him coming back with a year under his belt, their problem was they really didn't get a ton out of the running game. He was their leading rusher, right? And, I think that if they can get more production out of the running game, they have almost everybody returning on the offensive line. They're going to try and win games in the trenches. But I think they do have enough explosion on offense this year to where they can kind of sneak up on some teams. Obviously, not saying that they're going to be one of the top teams in the ACC, but I do think that they're a team that is very overlooked.
Yeah, and they are. Again, coaching, and I'm really impressed by the coaching. Broncos come in there and really push them, up to the top in the Coastal. Last couple seasons, they had a couple of falls at the end of last year, but they were top 25 team. They were surprising teams. They were competing. I think Virginia is a live team in that side of the conference. It's tough. I think that one's just so balanced. There's so many coin flips on that side that they're going to need a few things to go their way in those key games for them to hit their number. But yeah, they're good. I do like them.
I just think they might be a bet on early in the season. Like if you look at them, if you look at the bottom half of kind of like the ACC, like, you have your Duke, you have your Louisville. Like, I think Louisville's going to take a big step back this year. Syracuse, Wake, those teams like that. Like, I really think Virginia has the most potential out of all those teams.
Yeah, no, they do. I like Wake a little bit. We've talked about, our boy's still there, right?
That's Sam, dude. Sam
Hartman.
Yeah. I love that dude, man. Dude, he's a gamer, man.
Even down 20, he's going to keep, he's going to do anything he can to help you cover. That he pissed me off in that bowl game, though. They were up 14-0 against Wisconsin. And
gave it away.
He threw 4 picks. And the crazy part about it is I think they led the conference in giveaways. I think they never gave the ball away. And then he goes to Wisconsin and says, "Here you go." But I love my man Sam. I'm maybe a little higher on Wake than I think they're at the level of Virginia. But again, you're right. Syracuse stinks. Duke stinks. Louisville, I do think, is a huge, they have a huge problem there.
Big step back, I think they take, man. That defense, and they think the quarterback's going to be able to do everything, and I don't see it happening, man. I think they're going. I can't wait to fade them early in the season, to be honest with you. But we will definitely have plenty of time to get into that. Do we want to get into the group of 5, or do you have anything else in the ACC you want to touch?
Yeah, I got one more. Well, let me just touch because I have to. Wearing my Dion jersey today, and you mentioned Florida State. It's a team that. You get the rumors. What is Milton? I don't think you're ever going to know until a couple days before the game against Notre Dame. I think this one's the lid's going to be kept on tight there. And you're right, they really don't have much passing behind Mackenzie Milton. They have Jordan Travis. He's returning from last year. He led the team in rushing, and he's a quarterback. That's how bad they were last year offensively. Their offensive line has been just miserable. Even, at the end of the Jimbo years, miserable. They just can't seem to get it right, but they do have 5 returners this year. So maybe another year under their belt, that area will improve. Offense looks like it could be decent. The running game got to transfer in DJ Williams from Auburn. And they have some of the, they always have running backs. Look at Cam Akers. He ran behind no offensive line, and he's looking great in the NFL. And right before that, Dalvin Cook. Got a couple of these guys. Lawrence Teofili. Little small scat back, kind of reminds you of the Warwick Dunn ages. I think he's going to contribute really well. Defense, 36 points per game, 6.5 yards per play. Atrocious. What did they do? They opened that transfer portal up and said, "Let's go." It was like like the Marvel movie, like Thor coming back to, everybody's coming in. And they got 4 potential starters coming in from the transfer portal. They're just pulling, head coach Mike Norvell is using all his, levers he's got out there to really try and make this thing go back to the way it should. It's all on Mackenzie Milton, though. And you talked about it earlier. I think Florida State, they're live at their number to go over, but I can't play it because of the situation at quarterback. I think the talent is rising. I think Norvell really messed up some of his COVID talk last year. He didn't have the players on his side. He had a rough first year. I think now he's settled in and he's starting to understand the football and the landscape of the area. I think they're going to be better. I think they're going to compete. They're going to lose by 35 to Clemson. But when you get to the other teams, I think they compete a little bit, but I can't touch them. I don't know where you're at with them.
I'm nowhere, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because I don't know who these guys are, and I feel like that's been the past couple of years with Florida State. It's like who are they going to be? And there's so much variance with this team. Like you said, they're trying to pull people off the transfer portal. They're trying to put everything together because they're just desperate to get back to what they used to be and desperate to start winning some football games at FSU. And I think they have a lot of talent. I think they're very talented, but the question is how does that look on the football field? How are they going to put it together? How are they going to be able to execute? I was much more bullish on Florida State before I heard the quarterback news. I think that really kills them, man. I think that really, really, and it's not just that, but it's like when you're kind of throwing a bunch of pieces together fast and you're trying to kind of build a program because there's a lot of pressure, you know what I mean? And listen, there are positives to FSU, right? Like they're always going to recruit, they're always going to get good players in there. But when you're doing that, sometimes you don't have the depth. And I think that, that's the issue with Milton. They kind of put their eggs in Milton's basket, a quarterback. And if that's not able to work out or be as effective as they thought, I think it could be problematic for them during the season. So they're a big question mark for me, man, a big no touch. Because, and it's even like the Notre Dame game, like, okay, like we're seeing the line kind of move towards Notre Dame. I would probably lean under in that game before even touching Notre Dame because I don't love Notre Dame this year. They got the kid from Wisconsin. He's like check down champion.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not ready to fire off wagers on Notre Dame in week 1. To be honest with you, I think they're headed for a down year. So if I would look at anything in that game, I would look at the under. If Milton doesn't play and they do, you got two teams that are dinking and dunking down the field, trying to win with their running game, trying to just reel clock off, and then plus you go to the fact that it's the first game of the season. So, I think there might be some value on the total in that game, but that's the only thing I'm really looking at with FSU. I got to see it to believe it. And it's going to take a couple weeks, but the market will probably catch up by then. So,
yeah. And they've given zero confidence, to bettors in the past, especially, under Taggart, but even last year under Norvell. And the crazy part is their games aren't even competitive. So that's where I'm looking to step this year to be competitive and maybe from a betting perspective, grab some of that past bias and hopefully maybe sneak a couple. But it's all the over-under's off the table for me. And we're going to have to really see, where Milton lands. And then, see how this defense improves. That 36 points per game was atrocious. But I will leave with the ACC with one last play. I like the Pitt Panthers a lot. Let's just talk UNC real fast. UNC looks like the cream of the crop in that division with quarterback Sam Howell looking like right now McShay laid him out as the second best prospect. Potentially number 2 pick in next year's NFL draft. I'm not in love with them either. Like you said, losing 2 running backs, not just 1, 2. Michael Carter was also a big loss for them. Then they were a 2-headed monster. I think they had a game when they ran for like 500 yards last year. They both went over 200. It really made Sam Howell's job a lot easier. They averaged 41.7 points per game. And listen, you UNC people out there, Drums and I made a lot of money on them last year. They were in my best bets many times. But they were also underwhelming. When they were bad, they were bad. And when they were good, they were good. And I'm just a little nervous. The defense led the ACC with 36 sacks, but can they really duplicate that? The pressure's on now. It's a lot higher than it has been before in Mac Brown's tenure. And we knew it was up a little bit last year, and they kind of didn't perform as to expectations. I'm not sure they can hold it again this year. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, defense is going to be much better. And that's the thing is I think that's why you're seeing so much excitement with them because they have the offense, they have the name in Sam Howell. Longo is going to unleash them, and the defense is going to be better. So I think a lot of people see those 2 units converging to really make them a powerhouse. But the problem is that I think without that running game, I'm not saying it won't, but I'm not sure that the offense is going to go because it's a lot easier to be aggressive and throw down the field when you're in 2nd and 4 as opposed to 2nd and 9, right? So, I think the running game is going to impact that offense a little bit more than people think. And you're going to be able to tell early. Like if they're able to run the ball, they're going to be a play on because then they're going to have the defense on skates and be able to take their shots down the field and stay aggressive like Sam Howell and Longo want to do.
Yeah. So that goes to the Pitt now. And my reason I really like Pitt, I think they have an outside shot at winning the Coastal. Pat Narduzzi, the head coach, has probably a tall task. He's been he hasn't been able to get this team to probably the expectations that they've been looking at. He has had 3 consecutive seasons at over 500 or better. But they just, he's supposed to be this offensive guy. They just haven't really figured out on that side of the ball. And they do get Kenny Pickett back. That was a surprise. The QB, he's coming into his 5th year. He tested the NFL waters, walked out there. I think he's 6'2", 6'3", big frame, big arm. But prone to turnovers and, hasn't really flashed the full potential. So coming back to Pitt, I think this is, his chance to maybe potentially audition for an NFL job. And with that, Pitt has the defense on the other side of the ball. They led the ACC in yards per play. I think they were at 4.8. They let up some big ones, but when they were between the 20s, they were really solid. That's what carried the team last year. I think this year, they're going to come in and they were 10th overall in scoring in the conference last year. They just need to up that. Pickett, receiver Jordan Addison looks really good. If you can just up that game, focus on that side of the ball, Pitt can be a sneaky good team. And why I like them, they're over under set at 7.5. That schedule, baby, it could be 5-0 to start. I mean, you got UMass, one of the worst teams in college football. At Tennessee's a key one. I think both of us think not much of Tennessee. So I think there's some potential coin flip there. Western Michigan, New Hampshire, at Georgia Tech. So 4-1 at worst, 5-0 possibly, and then you have a 6-game stretch of coin flips minus the 2 of Clemson and Miami. They're both at home though. Getting to 7.5, 8 is not out of the. You still got Syracuse on the back end. I like Pitt's chances to really be at least maybe second place team in the Coastal this year.
Yeah, I tell you, they were tough. It was tough with them last year because you had the injury to quarterback, and it was kind of hard to kind of get your arms around that team. But them coming back with the quarterback situation stabilized, and that defense, they're going to be a tough out for anybody.
Yeah, really. So, looking at Pitt, looking at BC, I'm going to play both those overs from the ACC. I'm going to stay away from anything Clemson related until we really, settle in and see where the season's headed. I mean, they're overvalued right now. They're going to be great. They're a playoff team, but that's where I'm at in the ACC. I think you got NC State.
Yeah, I got NC State over. Yep, the 6.5, and I'm going to keep an eye on that Clemson line with Georgia in Week 1 because if those injuries cause that thing to really move, might be taking a stab on Georgia, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about that next week. Listen, before we get out of here, Dave, we got about 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
We want to talk about some of the other teams. We don't want to leave all these teams that aren't in the powerhouse conferences out, so we can talk about the group of 5. One of the most surprising teams I thought last year, I'm going to lead things off, and one of the top 10 teams in the nation, I feel like now really making putting their footprint in college football, and that is the Cincinnati Bearcats. And their over under is set at 10 and -110 at BetMGM. Dave, this is a team 9-1 last year. They lost to Georgia by a field goal in the Peach Bowl in a game they should have won. They were up 11 points heading into the fourth quarter, but they won in the way that there are no moral victories, but they showed that they can play with the cream of the crop in college football, and I think that really makes a difference going into this year. I think that's why you see this total at 10. Desmond Ridder, the quarterback Heisman candidate, gets 4 of his 5 top receivers back. 3 of his 5 offensive linemen return. The defense was top 10 in points allowed, top 10 in yards per rush allowed. The secondary was 3rd in EPA and success rate per pass allowed. Kobe Bryant, Ahmad Gardner, probably the best cornerback combo in the country. There's nowhere to go against this Bearcats defense. They are extremely talented, and you can put them up against any team in the country. I feel like the schedule is not that bad, and that's why I like Cincinnati here as a play at the over 10. We talked about it. You can get push potential at the 10. Listen, the tough spots are at Notre Dame and Indiana. I'm down on both those teams. We've talked about Indiana last week. We talked about Notre Dame a little bit this week. Just not excited about either of those teams. I think, Cincinnati is headed for an 11-1 season at worst, and I think that they could possibly run the table, go 12-0 this year. When I look at this team, I think they're 11-1 to make the playoffs. I think there's some value there as well.
Yeah, since he's it, man. That's where it's at. And I'm going to tag along with Cincy in second. Group of 5, just so everybody's aware, really focuses on the American Athletic Conference USA, MAC, Mountain West, Sun Belt. You're going to find some teams coming out of each of those conferences, but where you're going to find the 2 top dogs, and Drums just hit it on the head, is out of the American. And that's UCF and Cincy. And as far as Cincy goes, I'm with you. Desmond Ritter, for me, is the key to this team. Right now, he's fourth overall QB in McShay's preseason quarterback rankings for NFL. He's 19th overall prospect he has for the 2022 draft. So there's a lot of, and you said Heisman potential. Ritter, I think, was like a 55% completion rate in 2019, upped it to like 66 last year, or 60, low 60s, I think it was. That's where he needs to continue to improve. We've seen his game. He can run, he can extend plays. He's fast, he's tough, and he does have a dynamic arm. It really, can he just push it to the next level as far as accuracy goes? Because we saw him a little bit of struggles here and there in some of the big games, but that they were able to win close down the stretch last year, but he did it with his legs. So now I'm really interested to see, can he do it with his arm? Now, you say his schedule's easy. And to me, at Indiana, at Notre Dame, I mean, they haven't beat a Power 5 team, I think, in 5-6 years. And now you got two of them in the both road, and you're probably going to get UCF twice. You're going to get them at home and then in the championship game. So, for me, 11-1's tough. I do think they're great. I do. But if they're not 11-1, they're not playing in one of those big games. They need to be at least 11-1, at least win that conference. And that's where I flip my script. And I tell you, I'm all in on the UCF Knights. They're my big team in the group of 5 this year. Big news out of there. You know who their head coach is now, right?
Gus
Malzahn. And
the Gus bus.
You know what Gus did when in his first year at Auburn? He only made it to the national championship game. SEC Coach of the Year in his first season. They were just dynamic. I think they didn't win a game in 2012 in the conference, and he comes in and just steamrolls everybody. Goes to the to the national championship game with that team. Gus is, one of those fiery guys. I don't know if he was handcuffed by his quarterback situation last year. We all know, or he got a little stale, I guess we should say. But now he's got some energy, and I'm telling you, this quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, a little lefty, he threw for 35, 70, 38, 32 TDs last year, ran for 6 more. He's electric. They have all the tools back. Their schedule, to me, is easy. They got Boise, but that's, I think, down in they might be playing in Tampa or somewhere in Florida. And Boise's with that, we'll see how they do with their head coach transition as well. And then at Louisville, we've already talked about that earlier. That should be an easy, Power 5, group of 5 to a Power 5 win. And then you got Cincy. I really see UCF and Cincy possibly splitting games. It's going to be who wins that last one.
Mm-hmm.
And very potential. UCF's going to be good this year. I'm really high on UCF. And that's who I like. Over 9.5 is where their win total set. And that's actually minus 105. You get like juice to go over that. I'm pouncing on it.
UCF's one of my favorite teams to watch, man. They're like almost the epitome of college football, right? And it's, here's the thing with Gus, and you talked about, and I think I already know your answer, but you talked about how he gave Auburn the bump, his first year there, right? And are we going to see that same bump with UCF? I think that's what a lot of people want to see. And I'm interested in seeing, does he really open up the playbook and get more aggressive, right? Because that was kind of some of the knock at Auburn is, listen, he had Bo Nix there.
Right.
And
it's Nix. Yeah, that's
it's very difficult, right? So do we really see Gus try and stick it to, does he really come out there and just go, balls out, so to speak, and just go nuts here in his first year at UCF and really try and make a statement? And I think that if he does, I think that they're going to be, if they're a very aggressive team offensively, I think they're going to cause some problems for some teams as well.
Absolutely. So we only got a couple minutes. Let me hit on 2 other teams with you. My third overall Power 5 or group of 5 team is Coastal. I think they're back, and I think they're ready, and they're going to be fully to their big game. App State, that's another good team too. Coastal's got Kansas. They'll win that, Power 5 game. But I think, conference-wise, and Coastal's going to be right there knocking all year.
I love him again. I love Grayson McCall. I think that offense incredibly creative. He gets a ton of people back offensively as well. So, the Black Swarm defense, very strong. Dave, I want to pitch this to you real quick, right? Let's talk about the odds. Coastal plus 150 in the Sun Belt. App State plus 250. Where do you see the value?
I see it with Coastal still. I really do. I mean, and maybe my mind's still wrapped around how, App State finishes. App State is a very powerful running team. And, they had a great bowl game. I think they went for about 400 on the ground in that game. And they won despite the quarterback at times. And they got a good defense. Well, what do we know about Coastal? That Black Swarm is tough against the run. I think it's a good matchup for Coastal. And I still would value Coastal in that, plus 150 is a nice number, I think, for a team that's got a decent gap with App State. I really do.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about Louisiana as well. I think
Yeah.
the Raging Cajuns now want to be known as just Louisiana, so we're going to just call them Louisiana. But I think that they're a team that a lot of people expect to surprise because they were able to win a lot more games than people expected last year, and I think that a lot of people think that they can kind of challenge in there. But I read an interesting. Gosh, I should credit them. I forget who put this out there. This is terrible. But I read an interesting stat, last year when you look at these two teams, you look at Coastal, you look at Louisiana, right? And, Louisiana won 7 one-possession games last year. Coastal won 8 games by double digits.
Yeah.
Right? So that just kind of shows you that, like, these teams might not be the same.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm all in with you. And I want to be Santa cleared up all season. So I'm not leaving that train track.
Nope, Grayson McCall, man. I think he's dangerous. I think he's a lot better than people are going to give credit. And I think we're going to see a big step forward for him in that offense. It's tough. It's going to be a tough year for them because it's a little bit harder when everybody circles you on the schedule, right? And everybody gets up for you that game. And they're not sneaking up on anybody, but I think McCall is that talented to where he can kind of overcome that. And they're going to win a ton of football games this year. I'm going to be on them. The market's going to be interesting because, from a week to week basis, we might not clean up the way we did last year, right? There might be some spots where we got to lay off with Coastal because it might be a little bit inflated earlier. But what I've seen so far, I'm not sure that they're getting the respect that might be warranted, considering, McCall coming back with a lot of that offense.
Yeah, I will tell you this. I'm pumped that Jamie Chadwell's back. He got every offer, they hooked and they put bait on. Every school was trying to get him to go, and he's got something there. And
the offense is crazy.
It's crazy.
For those who haven't watched Coastal Carolina, you have to watch it. It's almost like every offense like squished together into one. It's wild, dude.
They got a lot, and bringing him back and just to have that continuity, I think it's a bettor's dream. So we're really going to keep an eye on them. Last two teams I want to hit on out of the MAC, keep an eye on Toledo. Not going to get too much into them, but out of the Mountain West, and I mean, we'll get into Toledo if they start rolling. They'll have some potential there. I think they got one tough Power 5 game that could be the big one for them this year. But Nevada out of the Mountain West. I mean, I can't not talk about Nevada. You got quarterback Carson Strong there. He's the 5th rated QB in McShay's rankings for 2022 NFL draft prospects, potentially a late first-round pick. But then wide receiver Romeo Dubs had over 1,000 yards last year. This team is primed. They got everything back from a very good team last year. You got Boise on that. Who knows? The big game for them is going to be San Jose State at some point. And then hopefully they take on Boise in the championship. Keep an eye on Nevada. The Wolfpack are strong. They're going to be a team that's under the radar. You're not going to hear a lot about them, but the Wolfpack will put up points. They're going to be good. Their defense is stacked. I'm really pumped about the Nevada Wolfpack this year. I don't think they can, get to a BCS game. It's Nevada, but do I think they can get to an 11-1 season? Yes, I do.
There's nothing better than jamming your sportsbook account at 1 a.m. betting on Nevada.
Watch out.
It's going to be an incredible year. I mean, we could do 3 hours on the group of 5. It's a shame. Yeah. We'll have to find a way. It was tough this year with vacations to kind of squeeze everything in. Listen, our guy Royo's got a couple questions. Do we think Notre Dame gets in the playoffs again? No. I'm going to say that's a no. You're going to say that's a no, Dave, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, and the big reason, I mean, obviously, the schedule. It gets back to the Notre Dame schedule, right? They're not necessarily playing some of the mid-tier ACC teams. They get back their USC, which I think is tough. I'm not a fan of them overall this year, but I also think the schedule is not going to play in their favor.
Yep, college football plays. We'll be here every Saturday on the Sharp app. So, Royo, make sure you go download the app. Apple, Google Play, whatever you got. Go in there and download the app. And that's going to start next week. So next week we have week 0. We got a couple games on the docket: UCLA, Hawaii, UTEP. Who's UTEP got? I don't know who UTEP has right offhand, but UTEP's in there. And then the other game is the Nebraska, Illinois, which I already fired off a play in the Sharp app. So guys, get in the Discord for the Sharp app. The links are in the description if you're watching on YouTube. And download the app. Download the app. Once we get to 1,000 downloads, everybody will get the free 30-day membership that got in the first 1,000. So we are looking forward to an incredible year. Lots of big things happening with the Sharp app. Just incredible content, tons of picks, tons of, we're covering every sport. We had guys pounding the CFL unders, just all kinds of stuff going on. So get in the Discord, join the community, download the app today. Make sure you get in that first 1,000 so you can get the free VIP membership for the 30 days. Dave, incredible show. Can't wait to go live. Real games next week, next Saturday morning. We will be back. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and let's make some money this season.